Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia, co-founder of Numbers Protocol. So welcome to join our Misinformation from non-tech to high-tech, from Web2 to Web3 panel discussion. And we are excited to invite three notable guests to join the conversation. So we have Irakli, head of UNICRI Center of Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. And we have Philip, head of strategy of European Cybercrime Center, and Alda, president of Robotic Foundation, and welcome all of you. And how about we start with a short introduction about yourself? So focusing on your work and how it related to misinformation. We can start with maybe Yoda, like lady first.
Sure, thank you for having me, Sophia, and your entire team. So my name is Yalda Alkar. I'm the co-founder and managing partner at Bracket Capital. We're an investment manager focused on venture capital. We invest in growth and late-stage private technology company. In 2019, we launched Bracket Foundation, the philanthropic venture arm of Bracket Capital, with a mission to leverage the power of technology for social good. We published our first white paper in 2019 on how to leverage artificial intelligence to combat online sexual abuse of children. And ever on how to keep children safe online as it relates to the gaming industry and the Metaverse industry. We're currently in the process of publishing our second white paper that explores the dangers of these platforms and how they're designed in a very dangerous way, and how to preempt the mistakes that were made prior on social media platforms in order to keep kids safe online in gaming and the Metaverse.
Seems important words. And so the next one, Philip.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Philippe Aman. I'm the head of strategy of the European Cybercrime Center. We're part of Europol. Our raison d'etre is really to support member states in their investigations. We currently have 4 different areas that we support. So that's pure cybercrime, cyber-dependent crime, if you will, DDoS attacks, ransomware attacks. Then we have a team just dealing with payment fraud. We have a team dealing with the abuse of the dark web. And then we have one team dealing with child sexual abuse. So that's really, a strong operational focus. We provide forensic services to the member states. And in my area, it's all about, understanding the threats and trends. We publish our annual report, Internet Organized Crime Threat Assessment Report. We have standalone assessments. About 1.5 years ago, together with Irakli and Trend Micro, we published a report on the malicious uses and abuses of artificial intelligence, looking at what is happening now, what the future may hold, with an annex on deepfakes. And then we, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, published a dedicated report through our innovation lab, the challenges around deepfakes, especially for law enforcement. So we do look into, technology, new technology, potential criminal abuse, but also turn this around and say, how can we build systems that are more robust, that take into account, Yalda said, the potential criminal abuse and the dangers in terms of online harm, online, also safety. How can we ensure that we have systems secure? So I think there's a lot of work going on in that space. Now, this and misinformation per se is not part of a mandate. So, but of course we look into that. And for instance, look at how criminals already use deepfakes for social engineering purposes. But especially in the area of child sexual abuse and online, we do look at new technologies like the Metaverse. And I know our innovation lab has organized already events around that. How do we police the Metaverse? How do we, make it safe and secure? What's our role? What's the role of society? So in a nutshell, that's what we do. A lot of different things. We also do capacity building, prevention and awareness. So that's a big part of our work. And stakeholder management. But yeah, I'll stop here and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so our last guest, Irakli.
Thank you, Sophia, for inviting me, and I'm excited to share the stage together with Yalda and Philip, good colleagues and friends as well, with whom our center and me personally cooperated for many years now, and plan to do it in many years to come as well. My name is Irakli Beridze. I'm head of the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics for UNICRI. It's a United Nations agency which deals with issues related to crime prevention, criminal justice, rule of law, human rights in that sense. And the center which I'm heading is now going to celebrate its fifth anniversary in The Hague since its inception. It's probably one of the first UN initiatives in the area of artificial intelligence and related new and emerging technologies. Our center deals with the numerous issues on AI, blockchain. Now we're looking at the metaverse and a number of other issues, how to ensure, how to advise, and how to make sure that United Nations member states are well equipped, both technologically as well as from the sort of a policy understanding, to ensure that technology used for good and the risks are minimized. So that's in the nutshell. We are working on numerous projects like what Philip was mentioning. We're also very much plugged in the issues of how technology like AI can combat sexual exploitation, abuse of children online, and actually both Europol and Bracket Foundation are part of our advisory board on the AI for Safer Children initiative. We are also teamed up with Interpol and European Commission to and working on larger policy guidelines, a toolkit for the responsible use of artificial intelligence for the law enforcement, which is extremely sensitive, but at the same time, very needed activity and exercise, and well appreciated by UN member states. Hopefully 193 of them will be using it. At the same time, now going into the issues related to the metaverse, UNICRI AI Center launched a specialized stream, which is called the Future Series, where we already twice had a discussion on the metaverse and Web3, as we are taking baby steps from the Web2 to the Web3. But those baby steps, although small, are very fast, and we are going kind of fast forwarding ourselves to the future. Sometimes technology may not be sort of going fast alongside with it, how we see it in certain instances, but at the same time, we all need to be ready because, and I said that in a couple of times already in my public engagements, that unlike physical world, which is limited by its nature because we are still one planetary species, whether we like it or not, and whether it will be different in the future, the metaverse or the virtual worlds virtually have absolutely no limits. And over there, you can create a limitless existence. And to finalize it, I strongly believe that within 10 to 15 years, most of us will have a presence in the so-called metaverse, whether we will be working there, exercising, studying, or doing other type of activities. Therefore, it is so important that we will make sure that it is a safe place, and countries, governments, and other stakeholders are well equipped to make sure that our presence, especially our children's presence there, is safe, secure, and beneficial rather than posing risks. So we can discuss issues related to the misinformation and deepfakes a bit later as well.
Yeah, I think this is really important. To be honest, I didn't really know these organizations exist before I know Irakli. So however, as misinformation become a bigger and bigger problem now, so echoing what Irakli said, I believe this will be a super important in problem or things we need to deal with in the coming future. Thank you for all your introduction. So I think the first question from me will be, from your point of view, what caused the misinformation on the internet, and what consequence do you think will and have been caused by these misinformation issues? Maybe start with Philip.
Oh, thank you, and thanks again for including us as well in the discussion. I think it's a number of issues that we see. I think a number of factors that have come together in terms of mis and disinformation, which is obviously not a new concept. It's been around for decades, probably. For as long as we've been able to communicate as human beings, there was the problem of mis and disinformation. But I think what we're seeing right now is obviously that we have the possibility, or one has the possibility, to spread mis and disinformation at scale. So you obviously have the platforms, you have social media platforms, so you can now, using your mobile phone, reach, potentially hundreds of thousands of people, things that we weren't able to do in the past. So it's much easier now, using technology to connect to people, to reach out to people. So I think that's one of the key factors there. I think secondly, I would say, well, it is, again, developments in the area of artificial intelligence. Again, artificial has been around since the 1960s. I've been prior to that, and a lot of the concepts that we currently use have been around for decades. So it's not new per se, but again, we've seen that convergence in that space where we now collect data that we haven't collected before. We have the infrastructure, we have cloud infrastructure, computing power. It's all coming together now. So I think you have that space as well, that technology as well that you can use to manipulate your information. And thirdly, I think it's also how we use actually the internet, and that's linked to what Yalda and Irakli have been saying is, we are living online. I think the lines between the virtual and the physical world are blurring as we speak. I'm old enough to hear have heard these screeching noises when I connected to the internet, and it was a sort of a conscious step that I had to take to be connected, and now we're connected all the time, and with devices on our body or in our body. So I think it's already happening. We are online and part of the metaverse, the virtual world already. But that also means that a lot of our consumption is through social media, is from like TikTok or Facebook or LinkedIn. That's where we get the information from. And of course, they use those social media platforms also use AI algorithms to promote certain stories. So I think it's all coming together. I think it's technology, how we use technology, and the fact that we can all do these things. But happy to hear the other opinions as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Irakli, do you want to share your thought of it?
Certainly, and I definitely agree with Philip. Of course, the misinformation has been around since the human beings exist, and whether it was done without technology or later on with technology, that issue has been sort of a prominent part of our existence, put it this way, and plus part of the larger problem as well, whether it was used for political reasons, for criminal reasons, or other type of reasons as well. Now, what technology does in this case is that accelerates the spread of it and accelerates the sort of a gravity and danger part of it as well. And then once the technology sort of exponentially grows, what we've seen in case of artificial intelligence, and the sort of a term artificial intelligence, we kind of use it more as a large umbrella term for a number of other sort of techniques and issues, which we're not going to get into it right now, has accelerated the problem as well. For example, what we've seen in the case of the deep fakes, before that phenomenon existed, anything you've seen it with your own eyes was basically believable. Any video was could be used as an evidence in the court of law, most of the countries, while now most of it can be questioned as well, because that might not be true, certainly with advance of the techniques like the deepfakes. And even within the deepfakes, what we've seen, and Philip can attest that, 5 years ago, the accuracy of those deepfakes were very poor. And anybody could have easily noticed that there was some sort of a manipulation done or so, while now even freely commercially available applications which we could download can do a very accurate manipulated videos. Well, at one glance will be very difficult to actually distinguish from the real ones. Then if you put enough data in it and enough time, computational power, and other resources, you could actually make a very, very good quality deepfakes in that sense, or other type of tools, whether it's a video or it could be also voice manipulations and other things. It could be difficult to detect from the law enforcement side or from anyone. Now, when we go to the virtual worlds where we're talking about us existing in the form of avatars or other type of representations, things become even more complicated and complex. And as I've said it, especially taking into account that the boundaries are limitless there, we can create many different rooms, many different worlds, and many different sort of engagements, interactions, and avatars and people, where the misinformation can become extremely grave as well. So I will stop here and just to add one more thing, perhaps leading to the sort of a next discussions, would be that what to do about it and how to deal with it and how we are going to exist in the world, which we are inevitably going to.
Yeah, I think Irakli mentioned the distribution of the misinformation defect. I think this is really an important point. From my understanding, the technology may not be good enough like 20 years ago, but it really is existed. So, however, the platforms make the distribution super easy and fast. This definitely brings like big challenges to law the enforcement to most countries in the world. So Alda, I heard that Rocket Foundation said it's the study focusing on the child abuse in the metaverse and gaming industries, and how influential have the gaming and the metaverse become for kids, and what are the threats, and why are they putting our kids at risk of the abuse?
Definitely. So I think what's important to note is that the metaverse and the gaming industries are some of the fastest growing industries in the world. There are over 3.2 billion gamers in the world, and over 30% of them are under the age of 18. And that is the fastest growing segment of an already imploding pie. And what's interesting to note is that gaming today is very different to when millennials experience games, where we would start a game and a game would have a beginning and it would have an end. Nowadays, kids, they use gaming websites like social networks. They log in to hang out with their friends, to make new friends, to generate their own content, to make purchases, to grow their following, to watch a Travis Scott concert on Fortnite. And they expect to do so and be safe, but instead they're not. They're really stepping into a hunting ground for predators. And when we published Rocket Solutions' first research on online sexual abuse of children in 2019, we had already sounded alarm that these platforms where children and adults were mixing in largely unmoderated ways was leading to kids and teens being groomed, falling victim to sextortion, and being lured to share pictures of them that were child sexual abuse material, and effectively putting themselves in harm's way with adults that were looking to sexually exploit them. And back in 2019, when we had published our study, the gaming industry was only 40% of the size that it is today. And the metaverse, the way that we're speaking about the metaverse now, wasn't that Main Street. But today we are really at an inflection point of an even more aggressive surge in these platforms. And without urgent reform to how these platforms are designed, moderated, and held accountable, we are really handing over our children to abusers with our blessing and sleepwalking into the next era of online child sexual.
So there's one question I'm curious and may get the professional advice from you. So will you suggest parents to join the metaverse and games to understand what children are fascinated about?
That's actually an interesting thing. That's a very good question. Own experience when we logged into the metaverse and gaming platforms for our research. So on the gaming platform, for example, anyone can create an account. So whether you're 10 or 24, your age is never verified. There's no email verification, no parent consent. Your question is required. And if you want to activate your parental controls, you need to navigate through 3 menus, 13 subcategories, and activate them, which obviously requires a basic degree of literacy. And this is the experience on platforms which are among the best funded and most lucrative platforms in the world. So just to put it into numbers, the global gaming industry generated over $180 billion in revenues last year. That's a bigger moneymaker than the global movie and North American sports industries combined. The Metaverse, which we are on, is expected to generate, over $600 billion in revenue by 2030. That's more than the GDP of a country. However, instead of investing in solutions to make these platforms safer, companies are driven by, other KPIs. They want to prioritize user growth, in-app purchases, user experiences, prioritizing, moderation, safeguarding, better platforms. And when we published our white paper in 2019, we highlighted, that there are many AI solutions that exist, many solutions that could be built in around age verification, parental controls, NLP, for example, that alerts if children are showing signs of distress or are being groomed. or simply, designing code that doesn't allow an avatar, to show the middle finger or to be abusive, etc. But in our opinion, if there isn't a clear legal and policy framework that ensures that companies embed safety by design principles to combat misinformation and disinformation, to your point, as well as online sexual abuse of children, and clear financial ramifications for companies that fail to comply, these gaming and metaverse platforms will never prioritize safety over growth. And however many parents log into the metaverse to try and understand the danger in the design will still be there. So we really think that the burden should fall on the tech companies to design better products.
Thank you for the professional advice. I believe Metaverse definitely opened a new era, just like this webinar, which will be played in our Metaverse and being seen by people from all over the world, but it is definitely also bring new challenges to the parents. I think the last question from me is, as Web3 continues growing, what are your opinions on its future impact? For example, there may be, like you talk about a lot of problems, not only for the children, not only on misinformations. There might be new types of crimes and scams, etc. And can you please share your views about it?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in. I think I just want to sort of respond also to, or complement Yalda's comments. I think, also to your question, I think, yes, there is some, responsibility onus on the parents, but I think they cannot solve the problem. And I think it's actually unfair. So I think it's good for parents to have a general overview of what's happening. And, we've been working with the gaming industry for years now, because guess what, any kind of platform, whatever platform you put out there, it will be abused by criminals, and it will be used by child sexual abusers. So that's just a fact. So we need to work with all of them. But I think there are a number of technical challenges, the number of legal challenges, as Yalda said. I think the Digital Services Act coming from the EU, I think will solve or will tackle some of these challenges. I think it really is a big step, and it's on par with GDPR and other legislations. I think I have great hope there. We just the EU Commission proposed the Child Sexual Abuse Center. I think another huge step into the right direction. However, there is a technical dimension to it, which I think is very, very hard to solve. And that is the criminal abuse of privacy enhancing technologies, the criminal abuse of encryption, where, on the one hand, we need to have, for a safe metaverse, for a safe cyberspace, we need to have strong encryption, we need to have strong privacy enhancing technologies. But how do we deal with the criminal abuse of those technologies? And what I can tell you from an operational standpoint, perpetrators in that space have a very good understanding of technology. They have very high OPSEC standards. So I think that's also a broader challenge that is that we need to have. And I think as a last point, there is an interesting development called the safety tech industry, which is a little bit of a branding issue, branding thing, PR thing to some extent, like fintech. But the idea is to make safety and security a competitive advantage. Now, having said that, I'm not naive, and I fully agree with Yalda that the one of the key challenges is that the way social media platforms work, they need to grab attention, they need to grow. And that's their main focus. So how do we get them to actually focus on safety and security online to minimize online harm? And again, I think there are some technical solutions, but also legislative frameworks like the Digital Services Act will have a huge impact there. But I think we have to have it's a long way to go from where I stand. Sorry, I just completely ignored your question now. But I just want to really get this out.
Okay.
So I'll give the floor to some of my other panelists to answer that question. Thank you.
Okay, Irakli?
Yeah.
And
so I fully agree with Philip, and I'm not going to repeat what he said because we've talked and chatted and worked on some of these issues, and certainly there will be a lot of steps need to be taken by organizations like Europol in that sense, but United Nations on the larger sort of a global scale, and other bodies which will come into the play to ensure that we have a safer presence in the metaverse. But I'm going to sort of look at your question slightly on a different side and say that I'm an optimist by nature, and in terms of work what we are conducting in the center is sort of look that way as from that perspective as well. And I'm going to say that the metaverse is going to create numerous positive opportunities in many different fields, whether it is just simple interaction, which will be a lot more immersive and a lot more realistic, put it this way, to the extent that it probably will be contributing to UN Sustainable Development Goals. It will be contributing to better education. Hopefully, it will be contributing to the better economies in general, creating employment opportunities, as well as other type of positive interactions and contributions which this kind of technology will provide. Technology in general, to me, is good, and we are not going to plan to ban technology unless it is directly harmful, like chemical weapons, for example. But having said that, what we need to be doing and what we need to make sure is that fully understand before deploying the technology, fully understand its consequences, and fully understand how this is going to affect surrounding or people who would be participating in it, especially children, obviously, and Yalda talked a lot about it, Philip as well. And as I said, we are also running a large project in that regard. But in general, technology will solve problems. And what we need to make sure is to minimize the risks associated to it. So I would like to see it from the positive side, to see how many people will get jobs, how many economic opportunities will be created, starting businesses and other issues, how many elderly people will be able to travel to places where they've never physically would not be able to travel, and many other things which will come to my mind or will come to your mind while you're creating some portions of the metaverse, Sophia. Thank you.
Yeah, Yalda, do you have any thought on this?
Yes, I was going to add something to Philip's point. The European Commission Digital Safety Act is forcing digital companies to find, report, and remove online sexual abuse material that's circulating on their platforms. And we think, big tech firms will be required to quickly rid their platforms of illegal content. And what's most important here is that the failure to comply may result in fines of up to 6% of their company's global revenues. And for us, that's the biggest parameter within that legislation, because it would hurt the companies where it should hurt the most, which is their bottom line. And we applaud the step, but obviously we think that much more needs to be done to rid platforms of the toxicity of online sexual abuse of children, and as you said, disinformation and misinformation as well. But I truly believe that investors have even more power than governments in influencing good business decisions. So the same way that investors made ESG a condition for investments, they should make by design embedded principles in their due diligence on gaming and metaverse companies as well. To Irakli's point, I think the metaverse does offer plenty of opportunities for children. It encourages children creativity, opportunities to connect, opportunities to learn and meet like-minded individuals. But obviously, policies and mechanisms should be put in place to ensure that these games, these metaverse platforms are reviewed for their safety on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your sharing. I hope technology like Numbers Protocol can bring authentic to the digital media with many other innovative technology can help to reduce the misinformation and cybercrime. Potentially, maybe can help preserve the crime evidence and make the future world of the children in this generation safer. So as Philip and Irakli mentioned, we just need to make sure what we are developing and how we believe the technology we are building. I'm so happy to have you all today. It's a short conversation, but I think I like it for our community. Thank you, Irakli, Philip, and Yalda. It was really great to have you today. And we will record the conversations and then put it on our Numberverse, and to make everybody get into the Metaverse can hear about this. The exhibitions on Numberverse is still open, so you're welcome to check the exhibition on Metaverse. Come to check it out. And thank you all. So I think the conversation was ended here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.